We saw it just happen with Trump's corrupt and disastrous and rushed tariff scheme. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene buy that dip.
Once again, AOC had a very fiery speech accusing members of the Republican Party of insider trading and buying during the dip before Donald Trump said, hey, now is a good time to buy into the stock market. The issue is, for Democrats, the script is being flipped and Republicans are now pointing out, hold on, there are members in your party who we know or definitely have enough evidence of some sort of sketchy things going on in the stock market.
Disastrous and rushed tariff scheme. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene buy that dip. I got one question for her. How much did you make? How much did you make off of people's despair? How much did you make off that panic? How much did you make off of that suffering? No more. We can't accept it.
Is a billionaire actually, like a multi-billionaire, do they actually feel the difference between having $100 billion and $101 billion? Because
I don't know.
It's so unnecessary. And so they're doing it, but they shouldn't be. And we need to fight to make sure that they stop.
Right.
To answer your question, I think if it is true, which I suspect, don't have the evidence yet, there's going to be an investigation. If it is true, of course it's illegal.
Now, one thing I want to point out, even though Bernie Sanders and AOC, they're on this tour, you still have Democrats in a divide, because even Bernie Sanders is not fully accusing Republicans of a crime. I don't think he would ever do that, because he knows the script would be flipped on Democrats, but AOC seems to have no problem of accusing Republicans of a literal crime, insider trading.
Senator, do you think there's any evidence that anyone profited off of these tariffs?
There is enough of an offense here, there's enough smoke here that should demand congressional hearings. We are a separate and equal branch of government. The Constitution lays out very clearly that Congress is not supposed to be spineless and submissive. It is supposed to hold up oversight over the president. These are real, legitimate, justifiable questions.
And don't worry, I already know what you are all thinking. I can hear you guys yelling at your TV screens, yelling at the phone. If there's one person in the Democrat Party that Democrats seem to look the other way, here she is.
Just look at Nancy Pelosi's insider trading deals. It is insider trading, and she keeps making up hundreds of millions of dollars. So do dozens of other congressmen and women. So they know what's going to happen. They're writing the legislation. They're doing the funding. It's the same thing for the media circuit. These people, not all of them, but for the most part, live and breathe to get on these TV shows. I could care less if I'd ever do media again. In fact, I'd probably be a much happier guy. These guys are begging to get on your show for 3 minutes here and 4 minutes there. They're begging for relevance, and they're looking for any way they can get it.
Inauguration Day, Nancy and Paul Pelosi made a whopping $38 million in stock trades. The question now is how and why? Now, obviously, Paul Pelosi doesn't serve on Capitol Hill because he's married to former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. They're required to disclose their collective stock trades, and Paul seems to have a real knack for it. On December 31st, 2024, he sold $24 million worth of Apple stock, and on the same day, he also sold $5 million worth of artificial intelligence computer chip maker NVIDIA. Stock was 138, so Pelosi sells $5 million worth of stock. Today, less than a month later, it's closed at 118, a 13% drop since Pelosi unloaded. Now, here's where it gets tricky. Apparently, the stock trading prowess of the Pelosi family is so widely known that there is an X account called the Nancy Pelosi Stock Tracker. Close to 900,000 followers can keep tabs on what the Pelosis are buying and selling, presumably in order to copycat their own way to financial success. And that could be making the Pelosi trades have even more of an impact on the market. Nancy Pelosi's been asked a number of times over the years whether members of Congress and their spouses investing in the market is a sort of conflict of interest. This is from 2021.
Should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to this second one. This is a free market and people, we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Donald Trump is a criminal. who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud, liable for sexual abuse. Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Now, as I was making this video, I got a notification, a pop-up, that AOC is near the contender spot against Kamala Harris as far as the Democrat presidential primary shock poll reveals. This is Yale poll. And if you're a Republican, you're probably saying the same thing I'm saying. Awesome. I hope she runs for the presidency. I'm sure she's going to do a really good job. Now, all sarcasm aside, this is the real problem, and this is why AOC right now has so much momentum.
And so who would you say is the leader of the Democratic Party right now?
Well, the leader in the House of Representatives is Hakeem Jeffries, and he will be the next Speaker of the House. He's earned that.
He is the voice, though, of the Democratic Party? Like, is that who the Democrats should be rallying around, pushing forward? That's who should be driving the message?
Well, I think we've got a whole new generation of talent, people who are speaking out on economic issues. I gave a speech in Cleveland on economic patriotism, our vision of how we're going to bring prosperity and manufacturing back around the country. But the most urgent issue is to stand up against the attacks on the rule of law, on the Constitution, on universities, and then to make sure that we elect Hakeem Jeffries Speaker of the House so we have one check on Donald Trump's unconstitutional actions.
Do you think, in terms of just political strategy, obviously you all have a lot of priorities, I hear you, about what you're trying to do, but in terms of political strategy, is that step one, getting the House back in the midterms?
Look, the simple truth is AOC has all of this momentum because there is no true direction or leadership in the Democrat Party. And when the approval rating is at a 21%, historic lows, and others say it's maybe even near a 10%, I saw that's what Fox News said, but again, it is Fox News. It might be a little too biased. But let's just stick with the 21%. Democrats right now with no leadership, that is why you have Democrats making these moves, sticking their necks out, and AOC is taking the safe bet. One thing I do want to point out is AOC, I believe, is the quote-unquote poorest member of government. So right now, she actually does, she fits the Democrat narrative, and a lot of people like her. That is why right now she has so much momentum. So she has nothing to lose. She already doesn't have millions of dollars to begin with. So if she's going to lose her job, she might as well just risk it all, unlike Democrats who do things like this.
We've not gotten a response yet from the Embassy of El Salvador to my request to meet with President Bukele while he was here. I believe he's left since now. So I've been in touch with the State Department and our embassy, and I do plan to go down, and I hope to be able to meet with the president of El Salvador or others in the government to press this case. Remember, and you.
So again, I just want to point out, and I'm trying to make a comparison. We could all point and laugh at AOC for looking ridiculous on stage, but you also have Democrats who are willing to use taxpayer money to go down to El Salvador, waste everyone's time down in El Salvador to try and release a prisoner who's not an American citizen. And by the way, the Trump administration just put a document out like an hour ago from the time of me making this video that if that person gets sent back to the United States, they will just send him out of here immediately, which is why the president of El Salvador has already said, you guys are out of your mind if you think I'm going to release him in my country, let alone send him back to your country. So again, the point is, if we're all going to laugh at AOC, she has the most momentum right now, which is kind of scary.
There's a lot of strangely wealthy members of Congress. Where I'm trying to connect the dots of how did they become rich while how'd they get 20 million if they're earning 200,000 a year? It sounds, nobody can explain that. So something's, yeah, we're going to try to figure it out and certainly stop it from happening.
According to some reporting out today from the New York Times and other outlets, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene bought between about $21,000, according to the reports, and $315,000 in stocks in the 2 days before Trump announced he was pausing the sweeping global tariffs, notably stocks that were initially hit the hardest. She also apparently dumped between $50,000 and $100,000 in bonds. That doesn't sound like a coincidence to me, but what do you think of that? And what can happen to look into that?
So many of these people are crooks, liars, and frauds. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is, of course, Exhibit A. We are seeing corruption unfold before us in real time. And House Democrats and Senate Democrats are going to partner together to make sure we, of course, shine a spotlight on these issues. One, we do need to change the law so that sitting members of Congress cannot trade stock, period, full stop. And until we get to that point, we obviously have to continue to highlight why this is problematic. And if Republicans are unwilling to hold a hearing on this matter, I can assure you Democrats will on Capitol Hill in partnership with the Senate, and we also will take this matter on the road.
Would the president support a ban on members of Congress trading stocks?
I'm certain that's something the president would be interested in looking at, and I can ask him if he would support such a bill. Sure.
Now, one thing I do want to point out is that AOC has said before in the past, and she is on record of being consistent, of also talking about Democrats who have a problem with insider trading. She's just never said anybody by name. Now, the problem that I specifically have with these clips and Republicans is that AOC right now has all of this momentum and she's talking about insider trading, but obviously she's only going after Republicans. She's not going after Democrats while standing in front of a Democrat stage. And all the proof is in the pudding when even Bernie Sanders is not completely agreeing with her and not being as harsh as her as well. So anyway, that is the problem. Funny enough, a lot of Republicans would actually agree with AOC as far as trying to look at the issues of insider trading, but we want to make it fair and we want to make sure that if you're going to have all these Democrats pointing the fingers at Republicans, let us point the fingers at Democrats who are clearly most likely doing this as well. So that is the problem a lot of Republicans have. Let me know if you guys feel the same way down below in the comments. Thank you guys for everything. God bless, and we'll see you all later.